Good morning and welcome to the worship service for the Unitarian Universalist Church, St. Petersburg, Florida. My name is Reverend Ben Atherton Zeman, and it is my honor to be the minister here. And when I say here, I mean virtually in so many senses of the word. I'm so excited for our worship service today, led by the UU Ministry for the Earth and supported by our intrepid team of worship associate Aaliyah Cannon, Reverend Aaliyah Cannon, and also our music director John Arterton, put together by James Mack, really done from different parts of the state of Florida and the world. In my case, I am back in New England. This is my home church. I am borrowing, stole, robe, and the entire building from my minister, who is now my mentor in Unitarian Universalist ministry, Reverend Cindy Landrum. So I want to thank Reverend Cindy and the congregation for letting me record these videos here in Massachusetts. Should you be new to the congregation of UU St. Petersburg, you are especially welcome, and I hope that you will make some time to spend with us afterwards, after this live broadcast. There will be a virtual coffee hour on Zoom, and the information will be available at the very end after I extinguish our chalice. And I hope everyone can join us on that Zoom meeting. This time, for the first time, we're going to split into two groups for that after party, for that virtual coffee hour. In one breakout room is going to be our traditional coffee hour that is checking on how you are doing and focused on our lives. And the other will be focused on the worship service that UU Ministry for the Earth has just presented for us. So you can choose or even float between the two, I guess, but probably easier if you just chose one. But either way, I hope that you will join us, and I'm glad that you are with us. As we light our chalice, please say in unison our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aaliyah Cannon, and I am your worship associate for today. I'm so glad you could join us, because today we are going to talk about climate justice and all the changes that are happening in the climate and how they affect us. And we're going to talk about reaffirming our commitment with our seventh principle, which focuses on the interconnectedness we have with the web of life. Now, climate justice is very important here in Florida, as it is everywhere else, because it affects us socially, economically, it affects our health, and it affects the health of the land. Every spring, Floridians can look forward to a season of red tide. Toxic red algae fills our waterways, and we've all seen the damage it can do. Hundreds of tons of fish killed each year. Seabirds, manatees, dolphins, all sea life is affected here. And it's really sad. Now, normally, when temperatures start to rise in the summer, the warm temperatures kill off the red algae. But unfortunately, because we are burning so many fossil fuels, this loads our atmosphere with carbon dioxide. And this toxic red algae, it loves carbon dioxide, and it thrives on it. So, I want to talk to you about just a little thing here before we get started. In Aldo Leopold's Sand County Almanac, he mentions a land ethic. Now, normally you hear about ethics between people, but he talks about a land ethic with the environment, with the earth itself. He says that if we could produce a moral ethic with the land, we could preserve the integrity of our ecosystems. Now, he also said we should learn to talk like a mountain, or think like a mountain. When you think like a mountain, you appreciate all the life around you and your place in all this amazing wildlife, the sky, the earth, the sea. It all becomes a part of your interconnectedness. So I would like to ask you today, do you or could you think like a mountain?
Good morning. I am so grateful that you have invited Unitarian Universalist Ministry for Earth to be part of your service this morning. We are very grateful, and we are particularly excited to be offering a service in Florida. Florida is the home, the birthplace of Howard Thurman, who, if you don't know, Howard Thurman was most famous for being mentor to generations within the mid-20th century civil rights struggle, from Martin Luther King to Jesse Jackson to countless professors and community activists across the country. Howard and his wife Sue Thurman tried to model what they called the struggle for common ground, the pursuit to look for what they called the growing edge that connects and unites us. The Thurmans really embody our first, our seventh, our eighth principle, our inherent worth and dignity, our connection to all that is, and our commitment to beloved community. But long before Howard Thurman met Gandhi or preached about nonviolent resistance or asked people to take time to know themselves, Howard Thurman was a young boy in Daytona Beach. And it was not easy growing up. He lived during the high point of the Jim Crow regime. His family's life, his life, even as a young boy, was very difficult. And even at that time, even as a child, Thurman found joy and awe at life. Near his home, there was a large tree. You can visit in Daytona Beach to see where he grew up, and that tree is still there. And the story goes, according to Theodore Walker, who is a professor and learned a lot from Thurman's teachings and learned a lot of questions he carries with him in his work. Dr. Theodore Walker said, Thurman once told us as a child, he was in front of his house, in front of this tree, and crawling through the grass, young Howard saw a little green snake. And Thurman said, as a mischievous young boy, he was very intrigued. What is this animal crawling in the ground? And Thurman said he actually stepped on the tail of this little green snake. But when he did, he said he felt a vibration that caused his little foot to shake, and he moved his foot back and the snake escaped. And Thurman said this made such an impression on him. One, to not step on snakes again, but more profoundly, that even little green snakes are creative. Even little green snakes have a story and life and want to commit to seeing another chapter. All life is creative. All life is growing. And Thurman said that planted the seeds, the awareness that creativity cannot be repressed. It will always find a way to manifest. Life will always struggle. One of Thurman's students who he influenced, Vincent Harding, talked about naturally creative beings will always resist creatively. And whether you are talking in the human, in nature, or in Thurman's case, the little green snake, there is an essence, an energy of creativity that speaks to our dignity, that speaks to our interdependence, that speaks to the pursuit of beloved community. So may we be conscious of the little green snakes around us. May we be conscious of the little green snakes in our own hearts that are struggling to let our creativity show, that have one more story to tell, one more adventure for the day. May we listen and be attentive and caring. And may that creativity blossom.
Please be sure to check out the UU St. Pete Weekly for announcement of many things that are going on at our church. Now it is time for joys and concerns. There is one concern that we have this morning, and that's for our wonderful office admin, Sharon, who, as you know, may be going out for some surgery sometime soon. It appears that there was some issue with paperwork. I'm not sure I understand it, but we are all wishing that she can get this straightened out very soon and get the surgery that she needs to live her health whole and healthy. And if you have a joy or concern that you would like people to be aware of, feel free to type it into the column if you're watching on your laptop on YouTube. And now I will add one stone for all those joys and concerns that we haven't heard about, but we also wish to acknowledge.
For the earth forever turning, for the skies for every sea, for our lives, for all we cherish, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the mountains, hills, and pastures, in their silent majesty, for the stars, for all the heavens, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the sun, for rain and thunder, for the seasons' harmony, for our lives, for all creation, sing we our joyful praise to thee. For the world we raise our voices, for the home that gives us birth. In our joy we sing, returning home to our blue-green hills of earth.
The following is a poem by Naima Pennyman. I wonder if the sun debates the dawn, some mornings not wanting to rise out of bed from under the down feather horizon. If the sky grows tired of being everywhere at once, adapting to the mood swings of the weather. If the clouds drift off, trying to hold themselves together, make deals with gravity to loiter a little longer. I wonder if rain is scared of falling, if it has trouble letting go, if snowflakes get sick of being perfect all the time, each one trying to be one of a kind. I wonder if stars wish upon themselves before they die, if they need to teach their young how to shine. I wonder if shadows long to, just for once, feel the sun, if they get lost in the shuffle, not knowing where they're from. I wonder if sunrise and sunset respect each other, even though they've never met. If volcanoes get stressed, if storms have regrets, if compost believes in life after death. I wonder if breath ever thinks of suicide, if the wind just wants to sit still sometimes and watch the world pass by. If smoke was born knowing how to rise, if rainbows get shy backstage, not sure if their clothes match right. I wonder if lightning sets an alarm clock to know when to crack if rivers ever stop and think of turning back, if streams meet the wrong sea and their whole lives run off track, I wonder if snow wants to be black. If the soil thinks she's too dark, if butterflies want to cover up their marks, if rocks are self-conscious of their weight, if mountains are insecure of their strength, I wonder if waves get discouraged, crawling up the sand only to be pulled back again to where they began. If the land feels stepped upon, if the sand feels insignificant, if trees need to question their lovers to know where they stand, if branches wave at the crossroads, unsure of which way to grow, if the leaves understand they're replaceable and still dance when the wind blows, I wonder where the moon goes when she is hiding. I want to find her there and watch the ocean and spin from a distance, listen to her stir in her sleep, effort give way to existence.
The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. This land is holy, and so are we. This land is holy, and so are we. This land is holy, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be.
Good morning, everyone. It is so good to be joining you all at UU Church of St. Petersburg in worship today. My name is Zoe Johnston, and I'm currently the network coordinator for Unitarian Universalist Young Adults for Climate Justice, which operates within UU Ministry for Earth. UU Ministry for Earth seeks to foster education, collaboration, and inspiration within Unitarian Universalist congregations and communities to act for climate justice and to celebrate the web of life of which we are a part. When I was invited to speak by Reverend Ben, he asked me to share my own story of climate justice. And it's true. We each have our own unique story and our own understanding of climate justice. As I'll be sharing with you, a formative connection to my physical environment brought me to the work for climate justice, and a recent experience at pipeline protests have kept me here. For me, climate justice is a deep calling to honor the earth with our hearts, minds, and bodies. Climate justice is a feeling as much as it is an action. So as I share my story, I hope that it inspires you to think of your own and contemplate what climate justice means to you. A few things to know about me. I'm 20 years old. I'm a lifelong Unitarian Universalist, and I grew up in Colorado along the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains. As a kid, my weekends involved camping trips with my family, packing up our car and driving an hour until we found ourselves surrounded by stone giants that reached above 14,000 feet. As a high school student, my early mornings were accompanied by sunrises that illuminated the mountains in a deep pink, highlighting the ridges and valleys that formed over 1 billion years ago. And my Friday nights at school football games took place at the stadium on the edge of town, looking out onto the foothills, with the sunset temporarily blinding us, before dropping below the summits and silhouetting the layered mountains, yet blurring any individual distinctions. I share this because my physical environment shaped who I am. We've come to see nature as external, as something different from personhood. Yet I feel as if the mountains are a part of my spirit. They taught me groundedness, holding true to my values. The mountains taught me stability, being able to weather the strongest storms. Even here in Philadelphia, where I currently live, I find myself orienting to the west, searching for the familiar presence of the snow-capped peaks. In the past few years, though, Colorado has experienced longer and more extreme fire seasons. The smell of our forest burning spreads across the entire state, making it difficult to spend any time outside. And the smoke from the fires drops like a cover, completely obscuring the mountains. It's always a strange experience for me, not being able to see the mountains, but knowing in my body and my spirit that they are there. These fire seasons are a very tangible example of the way that climate change has arrived on our doorstep. But it's also made me realize the way that climate change is impacting us as people. I found myself feeling disoriented, fearful, angry, and lost as the world I've always known changes before me. Is there a piece of the environment that you hold within you? What does that environment look like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Perhaps it's a river that washed away your pain, a forest that held you in a warm embrace, or an ocean that offers the promise of possibility. We are not separate from nature, but instead very much so a part of it. In the last decade, fossil fuel companies in Canada and the United States have been working to build new pipelines to transport oil across North America to international markets. Instead of investing in alternative and renewable energy, we have seen companies leaning into fossil fuel extraction, despite the ever-growing danger of the climate crisis. These pipelines include Line 3 in Minnesota, Line 5 in Michigan, and many, many others. Line 3 is a pipeline built by the Canadian fossil fuel company Enbridge, who is responsible for the largest inland oil spill in the U.S. Line 3 is transporting dirty oil from the Alberta tar sands and unconstitutionally cutting through treaty protected Anishinaabe land in so-called Minnesota. The construction of Line 3 and the predictable oil spills that will accompany it threaten the wild rice that's been harvested in Anishinaabe wetlands for thousands of years. Line 3 seeks to preserve the harmful industry of fossil fuels over the health and survival of Indigenous people, their land, and their way of living. This summer, I was part of a group of Unitarian Universalist young adults that traveled to Anishinaabe territory to join the Indigenous-led fight against the construction of Line 3. We came from different corners of the country, each bringing our personal climate justice stories to the front line. It was heartwarming to be in a space with other Unitarian Universalists who are called to put their values into action. People who feel strongly that the interdependent web of life needs us to show up for it in this moment. And people that are living into the proposed 8th principle of working to dismantle racism and other oppressive systems. These were my people. And it felt like Unitarian Universalism had come to life. We dedicated the first few days getting to know each other and collectively preparing for the situation we were about to enter. The fight against Line 3 has been going on for years, and Enbridge has responded to the protests by propping up local Minnesota police with money and non-lethal weapons. There was an assumed level of risk that everyone was aware of, but it was necessary for us to acknowledge it. Although we knew we would be in danger, whether physically, legally, or emotionally, we were there because of our values and fortified by being in community. Eventually, our group caravanned up to northern Minnesota, ready to help however we were needed. We arrived at one of the frontline camps under a heavy layer of smoke that had drifted down from the fires in Ontario. Even though I was many, many miles from home, I was instantly reminded of my own climate story. The climate crisis will not respect the borders we have created between different states or countries. The smoke from fires knows no boundaries, nor do hurricanes, earthquakes, or droughts, so it is essential that we do this work together. Although this was not my land, was not my history, I still felt connected to this fight. And I was deeply humbled by the way that the Anishinaabe people have stewarded this land for generations, even in the face of violent colonization and capitalist-driven resource extraction. That first night, as I fell asleep in my tent, I heard both the quiet movement of the trees and the ever-working hum of machinery drilling under sacred waterways in the distance. Our group was asked to participate in a direct action that would attempt to temporarily stop the drilling. Even with all the risks involved, we said yes, because as Unitarian Universalists, we believe that courageous love can save this world. We went there with love, and this was our time to act with courage. As we prepared for the action, one of the Indigenous leaders said that our ancestors would be with us and would give us strength. Not just our human ancestors, but the trees that have watched life flourish and the rivers that have nourished people for generations. Our spirits would not be going alone. The action put us directly on the site of drilling. If there had been any doubt whether this was morally wrong, it was gone. These drills were giant, a whole football field of machinery and construction equipment, a significant contrast from the peaceful, winding river that it sat next to. As the action began, my feet took control because in my head I was too nervous, too overwhelmed, too out of place. I am in awe of the other young adults that I was at that action with. They inspired me to keep moving and reminded me what we were there for. We have each seen the climate crisis in action and know that our future will be undeniably linked to how we act now. As young adults, we've never known a world that wasn't on the verge of destruction. But being in this heightened situation gave our life experience a new physicality. We were there to fight for the climate, fight for our Indigenous friends, and fight for all of our futures. Our action was cut short by a long line of police protecting Enbridge's property. We're outnumbered at least 3-1. There is nothing more terrifying than hearing onlookers yell, "Don't shoot. They are unarmed." We had found ourselves in the danger we knew we would be risking. The police responded to our group of Indigenous water protectors and allies with pepper spray and rubber bullets. We suffered their violence the same way that the Mississippi River has suffered oil spills. The polluted waterways offered a parallel to the peppered air we were breathing. As Unitarian Universalist Young Adults for Climate Justice, we brought our experience as young adults and our shared faith values. And this is what it looked like for us to fight for climate justice. It was a situation that I should have never had to experience, but will always carry with me. Line 3 has since become operational. As of October 3rd, it has been transporting oil through the very rivers that we were trying to protect. It will add more greenhouse gas emissions to the atmosphere each year than all of Minnesota's total annual emissions across every sector. However, the movement to stop Line 3 is very much so alive. We couldn't stop the pipeline from becoming operational, but we can stop it from staying that way. We can call on President Biden to shut down Line 3 or to revoke Enbridge's permits through executive order. We can continue pipeline resistance against the Mariner East Pipeline in Pennsylvania or the Mountain Valley Pipeline in West Virginia. We can make bold transitions to renewable energy, enter into a reciprocal relationship with our resources, and follow the generational leadership of Indigenous people. As people of faith, we are called to create a just and peaceful world, one that has safe air to breathe and clean water to drink. So I invite you to embody climate justice in your own lives. I think for many of us, our heads and hearts are deeply involved in the fight for social justice and climate justice. But I challenge you all to put your body into the fight as well. Of course, this doesn't mean you have to put yourselves in danger. Instead, just find the connection between internal and external. Spend time outside with the rhythm of your breath echoing the gusts of wind. Swim in the ocean and hear how your heartbeat is the loudest sound underwater. Take a walk as the sun rises or sets, its cyclical motion reminding us that each day offers new possibilities. Recognize all these ways that we are intrinsically connected to the earth. Our responsibility to protect the earth is also a responsibility to protect ourselves and each other. So as we come to an end this morning, I ask of you, how can you embody climate justice? How can you honor the balance between yourself and nature? How can you honor the porous boundary between where you end and the world around you begins? How can you take your place in the interdependent web of life? We embody climate justice, both in how we hold pieces of the land within us and the way that we can show up for it. I leave with you today a blessing. May you find in your spirit the ancient wisdom of the earth. May you find a way to connect with it, to feel what it means to be part of this global ecology. May you be guided towards actions that are inspirational even when they are heartbreaking. And may we all continue to build a collective climate justice story of hope, faith, and solidarity. Thank you.
To keep our congregation thriving, may we remember our connection to one another And let us not forget our contributions to support the means to those connections. If you're watching today on a mobile device or your computer, please hover your finger or your cursor in the upper right corner of your screen and click on the I in the small white circle for a secure way to give. The link will also be found in the description box below. You can also donate through the Vanco Faith Engagement mobile app or on our website under the Giving tab at uustpete.org, or you can always send us a check to our mailing address. Many thanks.
Thank you so much. Absolutely spectacular worship service. As I said before, I hope that you will join us after this for our Zoom virtual coffee hour. I will be there facilitating the room where we're going to talk about the worship service. And Bill, I believe, will be facilitating the breakout room on Zoom that does check-ins. But first we will extinguish this chalice, but not the light that helps our eyes see truth, the warmth that helps our heart feel connection, or the fire that helps us stay committed to creating a more just world. These we will keep inside ourselves until we meet again. Amen, and blessed be.
From a distance, the world looks blue and green, and the snow-capped mountains white. From a distance, the ocean meets the stream, and the eagle takes to flight. From a distance there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. It's the voice of hope, it's the voice of peace, it's the voice of everyone. From a distance we all have enough, and no one is in need. There are no guns, no bombs, and no disease. There are no hungry mouths to feed. From a distance we are instruments, marching in a common band, playing songs of hope, playing songs of peace. They're the songs of everyone. God is watching us, God is watching us, God is watching us from a distance. God is watching us, God is watching us, God is watching us from a distance. From a distance you look like my friend, even though we are at war. From a distance I cannot comprehend what all this fighting's for. From a distance there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. It's the hope of hopes. It's the love of loves. It's the heart of everyone. God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching us from a distance. God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching us. God is watching us from a distance. Ooh.